for a few moments with your prayers, I'd like to use as a subject from which to preach. Sisters are doing it for themselves. Sisters are doing it for themselves. Zora Neale Hurston, the brilliant graduate of Howard who drum majored at the literary parade of the Harlem Renaissance, was gifted with a wise mother, Lucy Ann Potts. And according to Katie Geneva Cannon, in her marvelous work about black womanist ethics, she interprets insightfully the brilliance and the source of the brilliance of Zora Neale Hurston. According to Katie Geneva Cannon, Zora Neale Hurston's mother once told her, whatever you do, jump at the sun. I don't want you to be mealy-mouthed and living beneath your potential, because even if you don't land on the sun, at least you'll get off the ground. How powerful is that? Her mother says to her, a young girl growing up in Florida, in the deep South, at the first part of what? The last century, where Jim and Jane Crow segregation are trying to define and confine her. What I want you to do is jump for the sun. Because if you jump for the sun, at least you'll get off the ground. And my sisters and brothers are parked there parenthetically, because is that not what people of faith ought always be doing? Surely if you love a big God, you ought not lead a small life. When you love a big God, you ought to be jumping at the sun and getting off the ground. Jump at the sun. Why? Because we serve a great God. Jump at the sun because why would you serve an excellent God and lead a mediocre life? Jump at the sun. Aim higher. Jump at the sun. Why? Because if God is for us, who can be if God is for us, who can be against us? Jump at the sun. Don't aim low. Aim high. Jump at the sun, because the Apostle Paul said, I'm forgetting the things that are behind me and pressing upward toward the mark of the call of God in Christ Jesus. Jump at the sun and my salvation. Whom
like muted. It didn't even stop. It just muted. Now it stopped.
It bothers me when people worship a big God, but then they're content to lead a small life. When you worship a big God, you ought to have big dreams. When you worship a big God, you ought to have a God-sized vision. When you worship a big God, you ought to dare to jump at the sun. But my sisters and brothers, the sad reality is that many of us, instead of jumping at the sun, we lead grounded lives. Preach, Freddie Haynes, I'm about to. When you lead a grounded life, it simply means that you have decided to live small and fake it on Sunday as you worship a big God. Living small. I'll see if I can make it plain. Several years ago, something hit the news that was mind-blowing. It was a story of over 100 whales, watch this, that got trapped in a bay and were beached, and they found out the reason that these big animals, these big ocean mammals were beached and trapped in a bay was because they were chasing sardines. I gotta back up and do it again. These are mammoth creatures who are chasing small sardines, and in the process of chasing small sardines, the sardines went to a bay area, and when they got into the bay, they then, watch this, got so close to the beach that before you know it, these big animals were beached. Why? Because they were chasing something small. And if you're not careful, you can get stuck in the shallow waters of life because you spend so much time going after that which is small. Well, my sisters and brothers, the question becomes, why is it that people of faith find themselves going after small stuff even though God has programmed them for big things? Shout you right quick. The shout is this, my sisters and brothers, and that is, if you ever dare to jump for the sun, you may get knocked to the ground by a storm. That's exactly what happened to Zora Neale Hurston. She was doing what Mama said, leaping for the sun, but then a storm of sorrow hit her, a storm of someone in her family not respecting the big dreams that God had invested in her. I'll deal with that first, because according to Katie Geneva Cannon, her own father, who was a Baptist preacher there in Florida and the moderator of a district association in Florida, would always tell Zora, you need to cut your dreams down, because that mouth of yours is going to get you lynched. That mouth of yours is going to get you in trouble. Cut your dreams down. What was up with him? He had downsized his own dreams because of Jim and Jane Crow legalized racism in these disunited states of America, and now he was projecting his fear onto his daughter. I'll stop right there, because if you're not careful, you will project your own fears, insecurities, and lack of self-worth onto others because of your own issues, because of what has not gone right.
Oh snap! Is it? It's my freaking. I'm about to say that. I didn't think that would be the case. I don't know what's going on now. Horrible. Hot diggity. It's been happening lately. This one blacked out, you know?